Good morning, early game crew. And after more bad news for Gamecock football that we got yesterday, I will once again sit here, and I am no longer asking. I am telling. We are going to make it a good day, whether you like it or not. I'm Elijah Campbell. He's Preston Thorne. She's Jen Jensen. And if you just weren't on your phone yesterday, or you weren't listening to these airwaves when Shane Beamer spoke and addressed the media, you might not know exactly what it is I'm talking about. And if so, you're about to find out now. It is expected for Josiah Thompson, left tackle for the last 2 years here at South Carolina, entered the transfer portal after this year and then came back, which technically became one of your more valuable portal additions. It's announced he's probably going to miss the 2026 season due to an injury that he has had for a little bit and has now reached the point where it does need surgical repair. We did not have too much time pass between the times we sat here and talked about Jacarius Peake's injury. Now, you might have dodged a bullet in terms of long-term absences for Jacarius, but he will not be participating in the spring. Good chance he misses maybe the first couple of games. But we still don't know. That's, again, the still thing with Jacarius Peake is we don't know exactly how much the season he is going to miss. It is likely that we will miss Josiah Thompson for the 2026 season.
I heard you say that. I know we have the clips loaded up. Can we hear Shane say this? Because he kind of, you know, they said like bury the lead. Like, he's coming here talking about spring practice, expecting a thing for it to be, you know, like, we're going to get into spring practice. We're going to be running this new offense, run and gun fast. And it was like, oh, yeah, by the way.
One thing, yes. So this will be cut 13, Jen. This will be the details on Josiah Thompson's injury, and then we'll get to the timeline. So 2 different cuts we'll play here. We'll go with 13 first, which is just the details on Josiah's injury.
Yeah, not really. I don't want to stand up here and tell you something and sound like an idiot in regards to where it stems from and things like that. And then in regards to specifically what it is, I just say, you know, lower body injury and keep it at that, and whatever he or family or anybody else want to elaborate on. It's nothing long term beyond the upcoming season, and you know, disappointing for him, but in order for him to be at his best, it's what needed to happen. He just had some limitations in the weight room because of it that was preventing him from probably being as strong in the lower body as he needs to be, and in order to, you know, continue to gain weight and be the player that he wants to be, this will be a thing that will alleviate some of that, that will allow him to take another step as a player. And again, I know it's, oh my God, Pete got hurt playing basketball, and there's Josiah, who that's going to play left tackle. We'll be fine. We got a lot of really good players in that offensive line room, and Pete will be back healthy, and when Josiah gets back, he'll be the best version of himself that he's been in his career also.
So the diagnosis from Shane, which he said he didn't want to sound like an idiot, but he'd take the advice from the expert here. It's okay to sound like an idiot sometimes. Mm-hmm. Do it every day for 3 hours, 6 to 9 a.m., right? And I have become very comfortable doing that. That has become my role. I'm not saying you have to do what the kids call gesture maxing.
Nice.
However, I would like a little more detail than lower body injury. That's the NHL scouting report. For those who are unfamiliar with how the dark arts of the National Hockey League do their injury reports, they are classified as lower body injury, upper body injury, and that is all they classify them as. Somebody, oh, you have a concussion, you're out for 2 weeks? Upper body injury is what will be listed on the scouting report. Oh, you tore your ACL? It's a lower body injury, probably going to miss the year.
We're back here again. I keep asking for the same sort of transparency that I think should be for, if we're moving in this direction, there should be some forms of transparency, because when you don't have transparency, it leads a void of information. And when there's a void of information, people, idiots like us, will make things up. We'll have conjecture. We will assume things. It is a lot easier for you to say what the issue is, take care of it, and then we can move forward. As I stated before, a lower body is a hip. A lower body is a thigh. It is a knee. It is a femur. It is a tibia. It is a foot. It is a toe. It is an ankle. there's a lot of different things that could go wrong on the lower body. And to be honest, none of them are great. Some may be better than others, but when you hear combined with the idea that you're just not going to be available for a whole year, that gives us a couple of options, and none of them are very good.
And my question is why we knew this was a problem. He entered the transfer portal. We brought him back, and we're counting on him, yet it sounds like this has been a long-term thing. So why are we counting on somebody that we know could be a lame duck? I hate to say a lame duck, but I mean,
It's fair.
If you're not playing in the 2026 season, yeah, I mean you're
I'm
sacrificing a year. Now sacrificing a year in terms of like the team, he could redshirt, and you're not necessarily losing a year of eligibility for him. But that's why I want to play cut number 9 too, because he is talking about in this one more so of the timeline of when the Josiah Thompson injury was known.
I knew that whenever we meaning Josiah, his family, the doctors, if and when they decided to do this surgery, that it would be most likely a season-ending type surgery. So we had this conversation with them last year and whatnot. But in regards to Josiah's status on our football team, in regards to whether he came back or didn't come back, from our standpoint, the surgery had nothing to do with it. It was, I always want what's best for each young man in our program, and Josiah is an awesome young man. His mom and dad are special people, and this will be the best thing for them to allow him to play football at South Carolina in 2027 and beyond 2027 as a hopefully professional football player too. This is the best thing for him to be able to just continue to be at his best.
So to give you the entire story here, or at least from what Shane has shared with us, is something that they have been aware about. Were aware about it whenever he was in the transfer portal and there was a discussion of him coming back. They still took him back, and it could have been for a myriad of reasons, but for one reason or another, they felt like they had to go ahead and do the surgery now, which, depending on what the injury is, waiting's probably not the best option. So,
want the best for him.
yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. It is just such a bummer, though, especially after Jakarius Pete got hurt. We don't know how long he's going to be out. And then your other tackle. Now, that's essentially the two guys you would have penciled in as your starting tackles on each side. One missing the entire year, assumed, and then another one missing an indefinite amount of time.
So the issue with this is that it throws another variable into the equation, because the variable he was trying to figure out was, why did Josiah Thompson regress so much last year? And now we were sort of narrowing it down to maybe he didn't do what he needed to do in the strength room, in the weight room. We obviously took care of the coaching aspect, so we were trying to get that out the way. But now we have to take into consideration that maybe he was injured all year. Mm-hmm. And maybe that was something that hindered his performance, and maybe that's why he wasn't able to do certain things, and he looks such a dramatically different player last year as opposed to the freshman All-American that he was, or the 5-star high school player that he was. He did not look like that last year, and now we have to take into consideration that maybe it was because of this injury. But then, with that being said, if he was that injured, then why was he playing? I think that's a fair question. If you needed season-ending surgery last season, you should have got it then.
Especially considering the season was at a point where it felt like it wasn't fixable, or at least to where what your expectations were at the beginning of the year, which was a top 15 team preseason, got you in the top 10 after your season opening win, and then your win against South Carolina State. Then we saw this thing kind of snowball into a comedy of errors, and you get to a certain point of the season where if there was any option you could have to maybe have him for next year, would you do it then? Now, has the injury progressed worse since the offseason? I don't know. That's one thing, again, with not the full story, it's hard to say, because let's just say it is, I don't know. Again, let me reemphasize this. I don't know what the injury is other than is the lower body. So let's just say it is the foot, just for the hypothetical here. And it's one of those things, he is hurt, he is not injured. and you find out it's a lot worse towards the end of the year and that it may require surgery, and but he really wants to play to try to win the Clemson game or to salvage something of the season with his team. You're in a tough spot because it's, okay, what does your next season look like? What are you trying to prove on the football field right now? And yeah, I understand that's a really tough spot, but the flip side of it is you have a really good chance of missing the next season if you don't have that surgery at a certain time. I don't know when surgery was presented as an option. That's also another important thing to know. Was it in October? Was it in September? Like when was it presented as an option or told you're going to have it? How many people in life too, like you have maybe some type of medical issue going on and a doctor tells you, you maybe don't need the surgery right now, but you're probably going to need it a little further down the road. I have a hunch that somebody in this room has probably been presented with that same type of hypothetical. So that decision's never easy to make.
No, but you do have to look at the future. Like, what does it look like as far as the hip repair that I had to have done? Okay, it's like, this is what the rehab is going to look like. This is what the recuperation is going to look like. And this is what my year is going to look like. So when is it going to make sense to get it done?
Exactly. And that's another thing, that because we are not in those rooms and only so much can be shared with us, that we'll never be privy to all of that information. But what I do know is I'm going to go ahead and have the assumption, because I know it's like that probably going to miss the season. I'm going to just assume and operate off the assumption we will not see him in 2026. And now that's 2 tackles down.
Yeah, and that doesn't do well. That doesn't bode well. Yes, we have a lot of great players, a lot of to be seen good players in the O-line, according to Shane. We have to see how that plays out. Again, coming off of what we just did, we don't know, right? The offensive line was the weak spot of the team, so we'll see how that plays out. But I think this is a very interesting situation because it just shows where we're competing forces of we're trying to be this professional thing, we're trying to be this college thing, and we're not really doing either very well. Because if you enter into the market, which he entered himself into the transfer portal, let's say if this was the NFL and a player goes for free agency, you've seen this happen before. The first thing you have to do through free agency and or trade is go through a physical. My question would be, did he go through those processes and other teams said, I don't think we can take on this risk? Or did they decide maybe they'll take on this risk, but we'll take on this risk at this number?
Yes.
And then there are all these different calculations that maybe we decided to take on the risk at the number or whatever it was. But the idea that Josiah is a good person and his parents are great people, that's awesome. But now we're talking business.
Right.
And we're talking about future rosters, and that's great.
At a big money position.
And we're talking about big boy business here. And so obviously everybody made the decisions that they made, but this just seems as if just to gloss it over as to say like, oh yeah, he'll be all right next year. You don't know that. There's no minor surgeries. And if it's something that's going to keep somebody out for a year, there's always the potential that it could keep them out forever.
Yeah, or never be like the same.
That's always a possibility that you have to take into consideration when you're talking about serious injuries, especially on big people.
Yeah, exactly. That's why they call it the
lower
foot
body
injury.
Injuries on big people can be issues.
I know it's a different sport, but like the centers in basketball that you know of who have had countless like foot stuff, in terms of injury, like Greg Oden had one procedure he had to have done early in his career, was never the same after that. Famously, never the same.
Bill Walton, Sam Bowie. And I think it's interesting you're drawing a lot of the basketball parallels because he is
6'7". Insert hand motion here. But we can go to a literal basketball parallel.
Let's talk about some fun stuff now.
You like dunks? Hey, kid, you like dunks? Well, the CLA, there were a lot of them last night, just not for the team that you cheer for. We'll discuss that next.
All right, guys, maybe you're not feeling like yourself. Maybe you lost your edge. Maybe you're struggling to work out and not getting the results that you used to. Well, you can call Dr. Dan Baltnight, who's a respected local physician, and he'll get to the bottom of it. This isn't some nameless, faceless online program that you just throw your numbers in and that you don't know what's going to happen that when they come back. Dr. Dan Baltnight personally tailors your treatment based on your labs and symptoms, and he'll take care of it at the men's clinic. You'll find a non-threatening, comfortable environment where your concerns are welcome. Here's the best part. You get an initial consultation with Dr. Baltnight for free. Get your T levels checked. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So don't wait. Call them at 803-875-MENS. That's 803-875-MENS. Or you can find them online at mensclinicsc.com.
Traffic moving along pretty nicely this morning. Good Wednesday so far on the highways. Partly cloudy today. 76 is going to be our high. Overnight low of 54 and then 80 for tomorrow, 83 on Friday. And looks like we'll be kind of low to mid 80s for the remainder of the weekend and taking us into next week. So good forecast ahead. Currently 46 on 107.5 The Game.
Preston Thorne, do you like dunks?
I do, and I cannot lie.
Like, you mean like things like cookies that you can dunk or donuts that you can dunk?
I'm still with you. 2 for 2.
Really, it's hard to argue with dunks of any sort. Dunkin' Donuts,
Yeah.
really good sweet
Dunkin'
iced
pizza crust and a good, like, bone dipping sauce or
coffee. Yes,
something.
or a garlic sauce.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
See?
buddy.
Nike SB dunks.
Oh, or my favorite basketball shoe of all time, the Hyper
Wow.
Dunks. Those were awesome shoes.
Impressive.
Very much
I like 'em all.
Times. Love dunks,
Except
when it's happening to your favorite team.
Oh.
Because last night, the Tennessee Volunteers had 15 dunks as a team against South Carolina. A lot of those coming off of lobs. Now, if for those who remember the 2010s Los Angeles Clippers and you didn't watch the game last night, here's my recap. Jacoby Gillespie for Tennessee was Chris Paul. Felix Okpara was DeAndre Jordan. JP Estrella was Blake Griffin because it was Lob City last night at Colonial Life Arena en route to a 19-point Tennessee win.
Now let me ask you this: do you come into the game with that as a scout? Like we have a report that this might be available, or is it that we run it once or twice and now we see that it's working and we do it over and over again?
Rick Barnes, after the game last night, said that they didn't do anything different they do every other game. They ran their regular offense.
Is that true?
Looked like it.
That option is just not available all the time, because I would assume they don't get that many.
It's just
dunks.
not available all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It just wasn't available all the time. And, of course, they were without 6'10", small forward Nate Ament, who will be a lottery pick in the upcoming NBA draft. I will say it was not the best showing of ball screen defense for South Carolina. Now, there were some instances where they did, like Lamont last night did talk about having to, like his whole goal when you're guarding a ball screen is to force 2+ passes, because then that means the ball screen wasn't as effective. You made them have to score outside of that initial action. However, if Tennessee got a guard in the paint, specifically Jacoby Gillespie, who had 12 assists last night, if he got in the paint, JP Estrella or Felix Okpara were in what is called the dunker spot, which is just the short corner, and they would step up. They'd give Jacoby the look to point up, and that ball was going up, and they were catching it, and they were throwing it back down through the hoop with a lot of velocity.
Mm-hmm.
That happened a lot. Now, it does help that those two gentlemen are very tall. They have very long arms, so they would have what we call in football a large catch radius.
So they could catch the dunk. They could catch the lob here. They can catch it over here.
Up here, one hand, two hands. You know, you throw it near the rim, they're going to go get it. They are, like Okpara specifically, is a great catcher of the lob. JP Estrella is too. They're both, again, very long, and those two gentlemen combined for 13 of the 15 dunks for Tennessee in that game. Okpara had 8 by himself. Estrella had 5. And Estrella had one that wasn't a lob, where he just caught it like on the baseline, made like a spin move, and then posterized poor Michi Johnson, who had no chance of blocking that at all. Michi was just wrong place, wrong time. A very unfortunate set of circumstances that ultimately resulted in a poster. And I think that speaks to a larger issue with this team this year is a lot of it, because a lot of it was ball screens and Jacoby Gillespie getting into the paint. And then, of course, size and a lack of real rim protector, because a lack of real rim protector probably is able to maybe break one up or discourage the lob being thrown. And in the last couple of games now, we've seen against Georgia and Tennessee, with Georgia having Santos Surreal, who leads the country in dunks this year. I think he's got like 70-something on his lonesome. And then you had two guys at Tennessee come in here and combine for 13 that if you want to poke holes in the roster construction, maybe one of the biggest ones is just rim protection. And you just didn't have any of that last night, and it showed in a really big way, especially if you're only going to score 59 points. They had 56 points in the paint, Tennessee did as a team.
Yeah, you can't. Obviously, that's not going to be a recipe for winning. We understand that. But with roster construction, we talked about, we say it all the time, and it's not our concept, but the idea, the difference between big man and tall man.
Mm-hmm.
We have tall men, 7-footers, but they don't play like big men. Big men are protectors. Big men make you discourage yourself when you're going to take a shot at the rim. We don't have any of that available on this roster, so that's going to be something that needs to be addressed because and what I also don't know is, and this may be a question for you, can tall man turn into big man? You have the ingredient. Can tall man turn into big man? Or is tall man a way of life?
Tall man is a way of life. However, I think it can be taught. Now the inverse is usually possible, where big man does turn into tall man.
Mm-hmm.
Like Brooke Lopez in the NBA was a back to the basket center who was getting double-doubles every night with the artist formerly known as the New Jersey Nets and didn't shoot a three maybe for the first 6 years of his NBA career.
Al Horford.
And now he is Splash Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Al Horford, one of those guys too. Karl Anthony Towns, I don't think shot a single three in college, and he's maybe the best three-point shooting center by percentages, maybe in NBA.
He's the definition of tall man, though.
Oh, he is now. Yeah, he absolutely is.
Because he was no part of that.
Like he was back to the basket shot blocker in college.
Mm-hmm.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Most certainly not anymore. So usually the inverse is correct, or at least a lot more doable. But I don't think it's impossible for tall man to turn into big man. And if you just want to look at like where South Carolina's size normally is, obviously your 2 7-footers are Kreese Asandiko and Jordan Butler. But then you look at the rest of the roster, your second tallest player is probably Mike Sharv-Jomps at 6'9". And we know exactly how he plays, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know what his style of play
Now,
is.
here's the thing. Here's what's interesting. 6'9" is right at the spot where you could be big man.
You could be, because you want to take a guess at how tall Ruben Chinyulu is for Florida, who is the best rebounder in college basketball.
How tall is he?
He's 6'10".
See? That's what I'm saying.
There's only an inch that separates those
you
two
could
players.
be 6'9" and be big man. That is a possibility. But
Ben
Mike,
Wallace was 6'9".
exactly. Mike Sharp-Jones has no interest in that, and that's not even his game. And
Not his game.
That's not a personal attack on him. So yeah, it's just fascinating those different ideas and realities, because really when you're recruiting these guys or you're going in the portal, it's not just numbers that you're looking at. You have to look at mentalities and styles of play, and none of these guys fit that description.
And since last night was the last game at CLA, at least regular season game, the women will play NCAA tournament games, so they're not going to do the Chick-fil-A promotion there because it's an NCAA tournament game. For the games that I went to this year, the Brickin' for Chicken promotion, opponents were 41-64 at the free throw line, so 64%, which is below the NCAA average, so that's good. However, the percentage in which they missed both of those free throws to award the entire arena with free Chick-fil-A chicken nuggets, 5 for 47, which is a chicken success rate of 10.6%.
Okay. So Chick-fil-A won.
Chick-fil-A and South Carolina.
Everybody won. Nice.
Except for the fans.
Yeah, well.
Unless you were there for the 10% of those and you got, your handful of Chick-fil-A rewards that you got during the season. So this year at CLA, if you went to the game, you had about a 10% chance to get some free chicken. Low percentage, but it did work for the university. It did work for Chick-fil-A. But coming up next, though, spring practice begins. Yes, we started off with the bad news, but what are the biggest spring practice storylines? What goes on in a spring practice opposed to fall? We'll discuss that next.
We have a report of an accident, Stone Ridge Drive at Greystone Boulevard. Traffic moving fairly well throughout the Midlands except for that area. 76 for the high today, 80 tomorrow, and 83 on Friday. So great weather ahead. Currently sitting at 46 for your Wednesday morning.
Today, spring practice officially begins. Now, South Carolina's going to have to do it without their two penciled-in starters at tackle. So that is maybe the position group to watch here.
Next man up.
Next man up.
Absolutely.
Next men up.
Next man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's hoping the weather girls make an appearance at practice because they're going
It's
to need it to be raining
raining
men.
Nicely done there.
They're going to need it to be raining men at practice because you're going to need some bodies to be able to throw in at tackle. But one thing I've always been curious about, because you only get a handful of practices in the spring, is Preston Thorne. We can ask the player, someone who's been through spring practices and through practices in the fall, what are the big differences in spring practice and fall practice? And what are usually the main objectives when it comes to getting things started in the spring?
So the big difference between spring and fall is we're not game planning. So in the spring, we are just essentially playing football with no specifics in mind. We're not talking about the formations that the other teams run. We're generally preparing for football as it may come. Fundamentals, formations, where do we line up, all the real basics of football, essentially football 101. And I think we heard Shane and maybe even Clayton talk about how they may have taken that a little bit of that for granted last year. Not necessarily just assuming that everybody knew exactly what to do or everybody understands football. Because to be honest, I know way more about football now than I did when I was playing. Right. I didn't know as much about football when I was playing as I do now because I've coached and I've lived a lot longer. When I was playing, I was just playing football. And really, to be totally honest, I didn't care what the coverage was or what the contained. And
What's my job?
I had a job to do, and I was only worried about that job because that is the only thing that mattered to me at the given moment, especially at different points in your career. You know, like if I'm a freshman or a sophomore coming in the spring, I don't care about this whole operation. You think I care about what's going on in special teams field? I am trying to get snaps here as a one technique. And so this is the only thing that I'm worried about. So you do have to explain. So a lot of times when we talk about, like, how could they not know that? They really might not know because they're not necessarily focused on the grand scheme of football as a whole. So you're trying to teach football, and I think the biggest difference is you're not game planning for an opponent. You're just going through the fundamentals of what football is.
And it is amazing once you're done playing your sport, you learn like the rest of it, how much you end up absorbing
For sure.
after the
Because
fact.
you just can't see it all because you're so focused on the thing that you're doing. It's very difficult to understand the complete picture. I didn't understand a lot of the complete pictures until I started coaching, until I got out of it. I could remove myself from having to worry specifically about my job.
And because you said so much of this is football 101, a lot of it, they are hammering home fundamentals. This probably feels like the ideal time to really go in on player development.
Absolutely.
And it always kind of makes me wonder every year when we hit this point in the spring, how much of games that you win in the fall are won here in these 15 practices in the spring.
Well, somebody's going to emerge. Some folks are going to emerge, and because you talked about the penciled-in starters, right? They're going to call groups, and even though Shane and the rest of the coaches are going to say we don't have any depth chart and we don't know, when they say group one, There's going to be a group of folks that run out there. Now, whether they stay group one throughout the end of spring practice, that could very much change. And what's very interesting about this year is there's so many new coaches. And so if you were group 3 with Mike Shula, because for whatever reason he just had evaluated you, you have a brand new start now. Kendall Browse gets to see you with fresh eyes. So a lot of guys, you know, spring is eternal hope and all those type of things.
Not just for opening day in baseball.
It's for football too, because some guy that was buried down on the depth chart with the other set of coaches now gets a new set of coaches with fresh eyes. They get a chance to evaluate them. They might come to the same conclusion, or they might be like, I don't know what that other coach was doing, but son, you need to play here.
They see something.
There's a lot of different things that can happen. So with all of the new coaches and the new changes, everybody should really be on their toes. Sometimes spring practice can get a little monotonous because, again, you're not preparing for another opponent. But one, coming off a 4-8 season, we don't have any time to rest.
We have urgency.
And two, everybody's new here. What are there, 4, 5 new coaches? They're trying to figure out where do we go. We're trying to line up. Where's the drills? What does that whistle mean? Oh, that's where the DJ is. The water's over here. Where do we line up? All this stuff is happening on the first day. And you went through the dress rehearsal and practice, but it's not enough. When that first period 1, it's gonna be like, oh, and it's gonna be real. So there probably is an air of excitement over there that they maybe didn't have previous to this because there's so many new people.
Now, how much of this is going to be offensive install? Because you mentioned all the new offensive coaches, one of whom is going to be the offensive coordinator, right? Offensive coordinator, somebody who is engineering this entire offense. How much of this is going to be install and balancing, like install of the new offense, making sure everybody knows it like it is gospel, and then also still working on that development because you only get so many practice periods each practice.
Yeah, that's a great point. So you use your individual drills to evaluate players, but there is a significant amount of install that needs to happen. And it's not just install as in these are the plays we run. They have to install how we run the plays, how we run this system, the tempo that we wanted to. Remember him talking about the center has to take the ball to the referee. We're going from hash to hash. All of that stuff needs to happen. And so it's not just going to be about them installing plays. It's going to be about them installing the idea of this offense. And that is what's going to be probably pretty exciting to those guys. Considering how bad the offense was last year, anything is going to be a breath of fresh air.
And that's kind of what I'm hoping this entire spring practice is like it is a breath of fresh air. For a lot of these guys, there is a feeling of a reset, right? If we want to talk about vibes on a team, I think the best one you can have here is just that feeling of newness and like a fresh start. Last year, now we have started spring practice. We are officially on to this year, right? Don't want to hear the words 4-8.
I have moved forward.
We are moving forward, and we're fixing this thing. We're getting things better for next year because there's so much you have to cover. This is an incredibly important spring because of how much player development is needed on the offensive line, knowing what you have on the offensive line, knowing who can run this offense at the skill positions, making sure Lenora Sellers knows this offense really well and is going to be utilized at his best. And then defensively, knowing exactly how you're going to replenish some of the spots that you missed and a couple of really key positions, like noticing who stands out at the opposite edge rusher of Dylan Stewart. Plenty of guys are going to get reps, right? Because Dylan's still dealing with something that he dealt with last year. There's going to be a lot of importance here in this spring practice. I feel like I say it every year. It's the most important spring practice you've got, but now it's becoming the bit. But this is incredibly true for this season on the offensive side of the ball.
Because it's urgent for everybody. There's urgency among Shane. There's urgency for Lenoris. Urgency for Kendall. Everybody has a sense of buy-in, like this has to happen now. And I think that's a good spot for a team to be in.
Yeah, it certainly is. And the one position group that we're all going to be watching is the left and right tackle. Now, how are coaches going to evaluate that? Are there other important positions to look for here in the spring? We'll discuss that to round out hour number 1 of the early game. Spring practice begins today, and unfortunately, we kicked off spring practice festivities by learning about Josiah Thompson's injury, or his procedure that he's going to have that will cause him to essentially miss the 2026 season. At least that's the assumption I will operate on right now. No pun intended. But what is the other most important position group here in the spring? Clearly the tackle position, because of the indefinite absence of Jacarius Peak, and now with Josiah Thompson. That's one where Randy Clements maybe has the toughest job right now, considering, A, how many new guys are on that offensive line, B, who can play at the two most important positions on the offensive line, but then also what other positions are we looking at with incredible intrigue here now that we've started spring practice?
Running back.
Ooh, that's a good one too.
I think for me, the running back position is somewhere where I want to see clarity coming out of the spring. I don't want to come out of now they can say whatever they want, but I would like for them to internally know that coming out of the spring, this guy is the guy. Mm-hmm. Now we can share carries, et cetera, but when it's 3rd and 3, we need to know who's getting the ball.
You don't play running back roulette in a tight position where you need to pick up 3 yards.
And again, yes, this is spring practice. Yes, we will move on after today. But until then, remember last year when we just never knew who was going to be playing running back in any given situation, or we might have a running back bust out a 75-yard and never see the ball again? I would not like that to happen this year.
You know the whole Billy Martin thing when he was the former New York Yankees manager? Sometimes when the team's slumping, he would just make his lineup by pulling names out of a hat. Maybe sometimes last year I felt like Marquell Blackwell had a little top hat on the sideline with names in it. He said, all right, we're going to run the ball here on 2nd and 7, and it's going to go to Oscar Attaway. Oscar, get in there. Get in there.
It's how it felt. It's how it felt. There really was. We were not privy to the rhyme or reason. And even Shane would be like, yeah, we probably need to get Matthew Fuller the ball some more. And I don't know, I'm not sure why that happened. What do you mean you don't know why that happened? You have to know why that happened.
Yeah.
If anybody needs to know. So I would like for the running back position to provide some clarity as far as who's going to take the most carries, or really define what their roles will be in that room, because there's space for them to have different, who's the 3rd down back, who's the blocking back, whatever the case is. But I would like for there to be some clarity and definition out of that position.
Yeah, especially considering you are going to have a room full of guys that have never been the bell cow back in their career. Talent? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got guys from Penn State, Ohio State, and Texas. They don't go to Penn State, Ohio State, or Texas if they can't play, or if they don't have at least the natural talent to get them in that position, right? But when it comes to collegiate experience, they don't have the experience being a bell cow back. Now, Christian Clark, we did see in the bowl game, be relied upon because of the opt-outs and injuries that Texas had, and he ended up having a monster game. So just based off of what I've seen from him, then that would at least lead me from one game and a one-game sample size and a bowl game scenario to believe that he's maybe if I were putting odds on this, which I'm not going to because I am not that much of a degenerate, but I would make him maybe the odds-on favorite at that position. But honestly, these guys have about an equal opportunity to separate themselves here in 15 practices. That way we can know exactly what the strengths and weaknesses of these guys are and where they can fit in on this offense.
Yeah, and that'd be my clearest thing. And obviously that would be within the confines of how the offense operates. So that's what I would say on offense is concerned. Defensively, there are some questions that need to be answered. Do you have anybody specifically that you're looking at?
I want to know.
And it seemed like
if we can get out of here, Lamont. What are you doing?
Basketball.
We'll get to you later, Lamont. Lamont.
We already did that. We don't need to know why we gave up 15 dunks. Yeah. Moving forward.
Well, we will revisit that at 8:15, Lamont. Yeah, you are an hour and 15 minutes early. Oh, I appreciate his eagerness, though.
Absolutely, and I maybe see a little more of that.
Yeah, you could use more eagerness from Lamont. But until then, Lamont, we have a pinball machine over there in the corner. You can play. You can knock out a lot of games here in the next hour and 15. But for this defense, I want to see if Caleb Herring has developed into a better tackler. Like, we know that he's talented off the edge. And the most important position on this defense may be, once again, who is playing opposite of Dylan Stewart, who can take advantage of one-on-ones. Caleb Herring, won a lot at the line of scrimmage, but when you take a deep dive into the numbers, his biggest Achilles heel was finishing some tackles. I think he had a missed tackle rate up in the low 30s and 30%, right? If you can get to where you just fix a couple things, you tweak a few things, maybe you can get him to round into form as a better tackler, right? Since that's the most fundamental part of playing defensive football, can you, in these 15 spring practices, get him to where he is a reliable tackler to make him a good edge rushing prospect to a really good edge rusher here in a year where you're going to need it defensively?
So building on that, the other part of the storyline, because that's kind of what spring ball is about. There's storylines happening. There's things that are narratives that are playing out. Is what is the development of? I guess I don't know. Is Julian Walker available for spring, or is he only coming in the?
I have not seen.
All right, so.
But Julian Walker's one of those guys too, where I am so intrigued because you watch high school football around here, you know exactly what that kid can do. He passes the alien test.
So it's going to have to be the development of who that end is, and I'm not sure if he's coming in the spring or whether he'll be in the fall or not. And so who is going to be the opposite of Dylan Stewart, which would provide support for Dylan Stewart to be who he was his first year? He was good. Obviously, he was good last year, but he needs that counter to be great again.
You need somebody on the other end of the line of scrimmage who your opponent has to really fear, right? 2 years ago was Kyle Kennard. Last year's Brian Thomas Jr. And you saw the defense have a really high floor because.
And Brian Thomas was great last year.
He was awesome.
I really, really liked his game last year for sure.
Yeah, and I think no Gamecock fan who watched every single game last year would say that your defensive line was the problem,
right? In
terms of ending up 4-8, but you want to keep that level of defensive consistency, and a lot of that helps because you have that man on one side of the line of scrimmage, and if you have a dude on the other who can get to the quarterback and take advantage of one-on-ones and very advantageous looks at the line of scrimmage, then your baseline for defense is really good. I think we learned that last year. And then one player I'm really interested to see is Quay Scott, transfer from Kentucky on the defensive back part. You're losing Brandon Cisse and Jalen Kilgore. Got to step up. Got to have some dudes step up. And you brought him in to be a capital D dude on the back end of your defense. Hour number 1 is in the books. Hour number 2, though, we will hear more from Shane Beamer when it comes to the beginning of spring practice, and we'll hear from him coming up next.
They call this wrong jacket season because regardless of how you leave the house, you're probably wearing the wrong jacket. Is it going to be hot? Is it going to be cold? Well, if you feel like that, your HVAC system probably feels like that too. But don't worry. You can call the folks from AAA Heating and Air. And AAA Heating and Air offers guaranteed financing for any qualified organizations. Whether you're a church or a small business owner or anybody who's responsible for the HVAC system, you know that this is a time of year where you need to get that taken care of. So you get no interest for 12 months. That gives you time to plan, budget, and breathe easy while your new system is installed. And along with that 12 months of no interest, you get a 15-year parts and labor guarantee. 15 years. That's long-term peace of mind. Getting started is easy. Just call AAA Heating and Air for a quote. They specialize in churches, small businesses, and light commercial spaces. Or you can visit callAAAtoday.com.
Hour number 2 of the early game starts right now. I'm Elijah Campbell. He is Preston Thorne. She is Jen Jensen. Before we get into spring practices, we'll talk about this in the morning meeting here in about 15 minutes. SEC Women's Basketball Tournament is this week in Greenville, and it will be sponsored by Griffin Pools and Spas. In terms of my coverage there, I'll be keeping the roads hot between here and Greenville starting Friday. Tournament season.
Nice.
It's back.
It is back. It is back.
It is back. My year won't be as crazy this year because last year it was your regular season finales here in March, and then
Tampa.
Back and forth from Greenville, and then Nashville for the men, back here for the first and second round, Birmingham, Tampa.
Yeah. Okay.
This year, Greenville, Nashville, back here for first and second round. Sweet 16, Elite 8, those sites are Fort Worth or like Sacramento. I think it's Sacramento. But either way, West Coast. Probably won't be able to make that one. But it helps to have a friend who lives right next to the arena in Phoenix. So if they make the Final Four,
Okay.
your boy will be going once again.
Phoenix was good to us. Almost was ultimately good to us. Phoenix was a good time.
Never been.
Great city.
That's what I've heard. One of my best friends on the planet lives there. He moved there around the same time I moved here, and he is still there, and he loves it.
Cool town.
Yeah, by all accounts, a cool town. Now, I said hour number 2 starts right now. So does spring practice. Maybe not right now, but later today you will have spring practice, and there's a lot of elements of intrigue here, and this is where we'll go out to the AAA Heating and Air phone lines for the first time today, 803-404-6100, where Rocky is on the line and wants to talk some spring practice. Good morning, Rocky. Welcome back to the early game.
Good morning, fellas. I was telling Jen, I've got you guys back as my morning listening. I've been out of pocket for a little while, and I got you back on iHeartRadio, so
All right.
I'm listening to you guys
Appreciate you.
before I
Good to have you
go
back,
to work.
Rocky.
Yeah, glad to. Spring practice, and for both of you and Preston, I know that football is the ultimate team game, but I'm going to individualize here for one person, and that's Lenoris. This spring practice, I think it's extremely important for him, probably the most important for a couple of reasons. First, he's got a new OC. So you got that learning curve, but also with the so-called air quotes I'm doing right now, projected quarterback draft class next year in 2027, I think it's like I say, extremely important. I mean, the two stars of this team are Sellers and Stewart, obviously, but for Lenoris to be able to get all of his learning in, to learn his OC to learn him, and to get through spring practice with learning everything and be able to hit the fall, on the ground running and basically just fine-tune everything. So I really think this is a huge spring practice for Lenoris Sellers. What do you guys think?
1,000%. Yeah, thank you for the call as always, Rocky.
Right.
And I think you hit on something really important here too, because we can talk, about the offensive line all day. We can talk about edge rushers and secondary players, but Lenoris Sellers needing to take a step, not just for like this football season, but for his career too, is going to be mildly important because of what Rocky mentioned. That's the aforementioned upcoming draft class, which is going to be, at least we're saying here now, in March of 2026, that the draft class for April of 2027 is going to be loaded with quarterbacks. We thought that was going to be the case this year, and Mel Kiper Jr. only has 2 quarterbacks in his top 40 prospects, right? And that would be Fernando Mendoza at like 1 and then Ty Simpson at 40, right? So it's not like there's some, it's like 1 or 2. There's a sizable gap there. It's going to be at least projected to be a little more hotly contested coming up this year. But just for the local aspect of this, if Lenoris Sellers puts on the cape and he was what he was in the last 6 weeks, and the offensive line allows him to get to do that, and he's starting to make more throws, right? He fixes maybe some accuracy stuff in the intermediate because we know what he can do throwing the ball down the field because he's got an absolute cannon, and he's got Nick Harbor back, which is going to be very helpful. That is massive for this team. If you can get him to round out his game in other areas, take less sacks, figure out the balance of when to take off and when to wait for the open receiver to find a spot, whether it's in a zone defense or just to beat their man one-on-one on the line of scrimmage. But Shane Beamer talked about that in terms of his adjustment to the new offense, because that's the big thing. How is Lenore Sellers going to be in this offense? How will this offense highlight Lenore Sellers' skill set in a similar way that it did for KJ Jefferson at Arkansas when Kendall Briles was calling plays there? This will be cut 12, Jen. This is Shane talking about Lenore's adapting to yet another offense. Shane said, whatever, man. Sorry, Shane.
Yeah, we just don't want things to work just totally perfectly. Little glitch is good.
See, Shane Lamont was eager to come in here.
Yeah, one, I think it'll be good for him as he goes into professional football when his college days are over, because more likely than not, he's not going to be in the same offensive system during his NFL career. So being able to learn multiple systems, being able to, hear, it's not like we have a lot of new concepts. Maybe what we called it in 24 or taught in 24 by the quarterback's coach was different by the quarterback's coach in 25, and maybe the verbiage and how Kendall's teaching it is different in 2026. But I think there's a lot of positives and benefits that will certainly come from it with Lenoris, and he's I don't want to get into his business, but he's a football junkie. I mean, he likes football and enjoys the game and spends a lot of time watching football, studying football, watching other teams and things like that. So as a guy that enjoys football like he does, I think this is just another opportunity to really kind of jump into a system and learn a different way of doing some things, and that hopefully will make him and our football team better in the end.
So that's the Lenore Sellers side of this, of adapting to a new offense. And I do like to hear that he is a football junkie, right? So when you hear that a quarterback has had 3 different offensive coordinators for 3 straight years, it does sound mentally draining. That's a sentence that sounds mentally draining. But if you have somebody who's really plugged in and loves the game of football and is one of those just never stops learning type of guys, then maybe it's not insurmountable, because there are plenty of quarterbacks who have that type of adversity and then still are able to thrive because they do mentally lock in to every element of that offense. That's what he's going to need to be. He's going to need to be a football junkie to continue to just take in all this information and learn as much about this offense as he can.
Yeah, I mean, and that is, to Shane's credit, that is part of the idea of being a college athlete, is that, I mean, I played in 3 different defenses, which is either an indicator of success or non-success.
Right.
One, it was successful because Charlie Strong moved on because he was so good. The other ones, that didn't work, so they had to bring in somebody to refresh it. So it's kind of, and it's very similar to Norris, right? Mm-hmm. I guess we're saying that Dow was successful. He moved on. Mike Schuler was not successful. He moved on also. So it is part of the process of playing in college athletics.
And now when it comes to Kendall Briles too, I mean, how much is Shane having input on this offense? Well, he talked about that yesterday. This will be cut 15, Jen. This is him, or this is Coach Beamer rather, talking about this being completely Kendall Briles' system.
I would say more than anything, it's I don't want to say scrapped, but it's his system. And just like with Coach Smiley coming in to coach special teams, when you can take some things and carry over where it's not as much learning for the players, great. That's easier said than done sometimes. So there's certain things that, Coach Smiley likes to call things that I say, no, we've been calling it this way for 5 years and I don't want to change now. If there's something like that I feel strongly about with Kendall or Coach Smiley, I'll talk about it. But for the most part, it's all new. It's his system. Hopefully it's even better for the players to be able to learn and retain the information. And as far as how involved I am, I believe in hiring good coaches and letting them coach. So, I mean, I'm kept up to speed on what our guys are teaching and doing each and every day, and well aware of that and on board with everything.
He is very plugged in to what is being taught every single day. I don't think we played a sound clip yesterday from a coach on campus, Paul Maneri.
Was that the same
where
thing?
he was not. the same level of plugged in.
Not necessarily the same. Yeah, Shane, you can go ahead and say we scrapped the other offense. You can say it. You don't have to. We don't have to have anything back from the old offense because it wasn't successful nor productive. We can take that thing. We don't have to donate it. We don't have to try and hand it down. We can throw it in the trash.
And you don't have to feel bad about it.
We don't have to.
Trash.
We don't have to feel bad about it. Nobody else wants this.
No.
We can't just, hey, maybe Goodwill will use it. No. This is throw it in the trash.
Throw in the trash.
It's good.
You cannot recycle this.
We got a new one. Move forward with the new language.
How much of a big change is that for verbiage of like certain players, like for Lenora specifically? Because again, he is one of the few players that has played on these three offenses the last 3 years, and that have been a little different. I'm sure verbiage kind of changes from coordinator to coordinator, but how hard would that be for a quarterback to have to kind of understand new verbiage or just even entirely new playbook?
Yeah, for quarterbacks, it's a totally different atmosphere. I mean, again, I played nose guard, so it's like, am I going right or left on this play? Which way am I going? You know what I'm saying? I always want to go forward, so it's no problem.
Point me to the direction I go.
It's not going to be that big of a thing. For a quarterback, there are going to be a lot of different things, but what you end up doing is you kind of work as your brain starts to translate or convert, like, oh, okay, he's saying, they say slant, this coach said cut, or whatever the case. And you start making the translations in your mind, and you'll work things out. But Norris is universally known as being, he just said he's a football junkie. Also, he's a smart kid, and also he's highly coachable. So the thing that I always keep coming back to is we don't have some issues that other programs may have where their guy that they're dependent on doesn't have those qualities. He has all of the intangibles that you want. So I'm very confident that he'll be able to do that.
There's certainly, I call it the Jamarcus Russell test. For those who don't know, you know, he was in training camp, and the coaching staff gives him a VHS tape and says, go through these plays, tell us which ones that you love to run the most and which ones you're most comfortable with, and we're going to center our offense around those. And he comes back the next day and says, Coach, I loved all of them, but there's a catch. There was nothing in that VHS tape. It was blank. Proving he did not watch the VHS tape. Oh, yeah, Coach, all of them are good. Love what you got here.
What a ridiculous story. What a ridiculous story. And my answer to that would be, hey, man, don't ask a question that you don't want the answer to. If you know he's not watching this film, don't set him up.
Make him. Get in there with him.
Yeah, it's not proving anything to anybody, but it is an interesting story. But, yeah, they don't have those issues at quarterback position. We have all the intangibles in place, and I'm sure that's something that Kendall is really excited about because you get to coach a guy who has all of those things going for him.
Yeah, and of course he's got all the physical tools too. And imagine that is just maybe one of the most intriguing parts of this job of him taking it was, hey, that guy is going to be my quarterback. Yeah, sign me up for this. Like, this sounds like a lot of fun. Give me a guy who looks a lot like and plays a lot like the guy that I had at Arkansas when we were putting up 400 yards of offense a game and scoring a lot of points. Yeah, sign me up for that.
Also, I think a key difference between this year and last year is that what you're hearing Kendall say and Shane say about the new offense is that we're trying to fit this around Lenoris. What you heard a lot last year was we're trying to make Lenoris into this system. Like, we're trying to make Lenoris into a drop-back quarterback. We want him to take – we're not doing that this year. We know what we have. We're going to build around that. And I think that is a very different approach that will be more successful.
Very important distinction to make right there. One of many things to watch for here in spring practice. But coming up next, it's the early game morning meeting. And with the SEC Women's Basketball Tournament tipping off in Greenville this week, is there a chance that South Carolina can make a case for the #1 overall seed in the tournament? We'll play a little bracketology because a legendary coach might agree with that assessment. And we'll tell you who that is and what it is she said coming up next year in the early game.
I-26 eastbound at Harbison Boulevard, the left lane is blocked. Also on I-20 eastbound at Sunset Boulevard, that's exit 61. There's an accident in progress that'll slow things down a little bit for you. Also another accident to make you aware of, and that's Stone Ridge Drive at Greystone Boulevard. Forecast, nothing to complain about. 76 for the high today, 80 tomorrow, 83 on Friday. And we stay in the low 80s really well into the start of next week. So welcoming all of that for sure. Starting off your morning at 46.
We have calls. We have a little bit of bracketology. We have everything coming up for today's morning meeting. So before we get to Ray on the phone lines, let's hit that sounder. Yeah, it will. And of course, we like to invite our friends onto the show because it is always an awesome day here on the early game. So we'll go out to the AAA Heating and Air phone lines, where our pal Ray has come back to hang out with us for a second. Good morning, Ray. Welcome to the early game.
Good morning. Good morning. Yep. Spring football. I tell you, spring football to me is always very interesting, and I'm sure Preston can speak on this, and Elijah, I'm sure you cover the Vols and maybe other college teams in Tennessee. You can speak on this as well. There's always a guy or two who'll stick out, and I call them spring football All-Americans. But come the season time, hell, they might not even be in school. They're on their third deep, But you hear these guys' names, and they're like I call them spring season All-Americans. But you've read in that before, haven't you, Elijah?
Oh yeah, for sure. You hear coaches all the time talk about a player.
That's the fun part of it, Not day many days. I always find that to be, because I wonder sometimes coaches do that to kind of motivate the other guys. Hey, look, this guy's already he's already up here, and you guys need to bring it up. But anyway, I'm kind of interested in, of course we want to see how the offense works, around Sellers and all that. But man, I'm still have concerns about our OL, that offensive line, because I'll tell you, I know it's a new bunch, a new crop, and all that. But man, last year there were times when that ball was snapped on that shotgun, Elijah. There were two defensive linemen that were parallel with that football coming in the air. I mean, that's how bad our OL was last year. So hopefully we get improvement on that. And I know the big kid out of NC State is injured. Hopefully he comes back. Was there another defensive tackle that got injured in the offseason as well?
Oh, buddy. I don't. Ray, have you been with us all show? Because we may be.
Yeah, we might be breaking some unfortunate news to you. Josiah Thompson expected to miss the 2026 season.
Oh my goodness!
Oh, I hate to be the bearer of bad news.
Sorry about that, Ray.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, Ray.
Elijah, Preston's know about this that I have. I don't want to say the curse word. I guess I just did. But there's definitely an albatross. There's definitely an albatross. That's all I got to say to these guys.
Appreciate it, Ray. That is the situation where people walk in and if he's talking, it's like, oh, you don't know, do you?
Oh, you don't know. He doesn't know yet. Oh no. We have to break it to him. I hate breaking bad news to people. It's not my strong suit, so I knew I had to do it. I had to do it to Ray. I'm so sorry, Ray. You had to hear it from me. I'm sorry.
No, Elijah, you have to say, I'm thankful that you heard it from me because I have to be here to deliver. I can take care of you in this situation. Glad you heard it from me and not anybody else.
Now, Ray did bring up the chicken curse, which you can believe in curses, you can't. All I'm saying is maybe it's not a terrible idea to take some sage over there. Or maybe we could perform an exorcism. I don't know. I mean, I'm cool with trying whatever it is that you got, whatever resource at your disposal, whatever, either superstition or religious rite that you can use. I'm cool with whatever, to do whatever you can to stop the flow of bad news in Gamecock athletics. I'm willing to do whatever.
What a great piece of radio. I just hope we don't have anybody else hurt on the offensive line. Not so fast, my friend.
I'm sorry.
Listen, I'm glad it's us.
I'm glad it's us.
That's why you come here, and that's what we're here to do. Thank you.
Thankful for the opportunity.
I'm honored to deliver that news to you.
Oh, man. Oh, well, Ray, after our good morning song, you know, we get to start with sharing with Ray. Yeah, Josiah Thompson is going to hit us with the Magic Johnson. I'm not going to be here, at least on the football field. He'll be here, but he's not on the football field. But when it comes to good Gamecock news, it is the fact that, you know, we are now in conference tournament time for the women's basketball team in pursuit of another national championship. And I think we've learned over the last few weeks that they are playing at championship level, even when they're not having their A game on offense at Kentucky, in a game that, in terms of your SEC standings and everything, inconsequential because you already wrapped up the regular season. They're still able to win despite not having their fastball on offense in that game. Seeding is now going to be the big name or the big storyline really in Greenville this weekend because the SEC can potentially get 2 number 1 seeds. I find it interesting though that I think rightfully so, Connecticut's kind of penciled in as the number 1 overall seed. I mean, they're undefeated. They're 31-0. Of course, their conference isn't very good, so they just buzzsaw their way through it year in, year out. But former Notre Dame head coach Muffet McGraw, legendary head coach, did share some thoughts on Twitter, and you know that they are thoughts when it's a screen grab of the Notes app.
Okay.
And she says, does anyone else think UCLA deserved the number 1 overall seed? Undefeated regular season Big Ten champs, beat 11 ranked teams, 6 of which are currently in the committee's top 16. They have 14 quad 1 wins, more than anyone in this country, and they're only lost to another number 1 seed. And what about SEC champ South Carolina as the number 2 overall? UConn is certainly good enough to win the national championship, but UCLA and South Carolina have had as much success against a much tougher schedule. So that leads me to believe this, because I think if you just take net ranking and you look at, you know, resumes, South Carolina is at best maybe the number 2 overall seed in this tournament because, again, UCLA, the Big Ten is really good. If you look at the net rankings, there are so many Big Ten teams in here that going 18-0 in it is really impressive. And South Carolina going 15-1 in the SEC, also really impressive, more so than maybe going 20-0 in the Big East. But if we just want to look at raw resume numbers, Connecticut's got 8 quad 1 wins, UCLA 14, South Carolina 10. And if you look at the average net ranking of the teams that they have beaten, for UConn, it is 90. For UCLA, it is 73. And for South Carolina, it is 94. And then if you look at average net ranking of losses, obviously Connecticut doesn't have a loss, so they do not qualify. But UCLA's only loss was to the number 4 team in net, which is Texas. And South Carolina's average net ranking loss is 8 because they have losses to number 4 Texas, number 12 Oklahoma.
Can you go back to the first stat you gave? It wasn't quality wins. What was it? Peak quad 1 wins?
Yes, quad 1 wins. Yes. South Carolina's got 10. Connecticut has 8. UCLA has 14.
Okay.
And then if you want to look at true road wins too, UConn has 12 true road wins. UCLA has 9. South Carolina has 11.
Okay. To be honest, as I hear that argument laid out, UConn's resume is a little bit better than I thought it was when I heard the quad 1 wins. I didn't think they had that many. I'm not sure if they should be number 1, but the 2 or 3 seed is debatable. And I think UCLA is 1, in my opinion, just from what I've heard.
Yes.
But I could see the 2 and 3 being interchangeable.
Because with UConn, too, the tricky thing is if you look at their regular strength of schedule metric, it's 53rd in the country. But their non-conference strength of schedule is 1st. That goes to show how bad the Big East is. And, of course, they ran through it with no issue. And they are the defending champs, even though you're not supposed to take that into account, right? With UCLA, their overall strength of schedule is number 1. South Carolina's overall is 10. So it does make things tricky. And I don't like punishing teams for things that are out of their control.
Correct.
Which, is it UConn's fault the Big East is so bad? Now, if you want to talk about whether or not that has prepared them to be able to win another national title, considering how good UCLA and South Carolina are, that's one thing. That's a separate discussion. But when it comes to like resume based, I still kind of see South Carolina as maybe being the third one seed, even if they win the SEC tournament.
I think if I was on the committee, I would lean towards that.
Yeah, but really though, I wouldn't be surprised at all if maybe UCLA ends up getting the number 1 overall if they go through the Big Ten tournament and end up winning, because then they can finish with like 16 or 17 quad 1 wins by the time it's all said and done. And it's just an astronomical number. But coming up next, this weekend provided a lot of Denny Green Awards that we have seen online, but we have our own Denny Green Awards to hand out, because coming up next, we'll tell you who is exactly who we thought they were next here in the early game.
Preston here for our friends at Absolute Glass, the premier glass company of the Midlands, offering auto, home, and business glass repair. If your glass is damaged, shattered, cracked, or broken, they can handle the job. If it's a cracked windshield, no problem. They'll come out to your location and they'll replace it for you, usually for free, and they'll work directly with your insurance to take away the headache. That's right. They'll come out to wherever you are, school, home, work, it does not matter. Absolute Glass will come out to you and take care of the job for you. Now, if you're at home and you're looking to increase the value of your home, Absolute Glass can take care of that for you too. Windows, mirrors, shower enclosures. You say it all the time. If you can see through it, Ray and Marianne at Absolute Glass can do it. So check them out online at AbsoluteGlassInc.com. That's online at AbsoluteGlassInc.com.
Traffic appears to be stopped right now on I-20 eastbound between exit 55 and 61. So between Highway 6 and 378 on I-20 eastbound, traffic currently stopped. Also an accident right there on I-26 eastbound at Harbison Boulevard, or it's saying at least a disabled vehicle might be slowing things down a little bit. And then Stone Ridge Drive at Greystone Boulevard, that's still in progress. The forecast, that's something that we can definitely look forward to. Looking for a high today of a lovely 76, then 80 tomorrow, 83 on Friday. It's 46 right now on 107.5 The Game.
We just the Bears are what we thought they were. What we thought they were. We played them in preseason. Who the hell takes a third game in a preseason like it's bull? We played them in the third game. Everybody played 3 quarters. The Bears are who we thought they were. And that's why we took the damn field. Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass. But they are who we thought they were.
They are who we thought they were. The words of Denny Green. Live immortal and rest in peace. And we saw a lot of that on the internet this weekend when it came to Carolina baseball. Again, I think before the Clemson series, we did get a couple of calls and texts saying, wouldn't it be the most Carolina thing to be able to come out Friday night and win?
And they did.
And they did.
And they did.
And then you lose the next 2.
Yeah.
With the way it's been going in Carolina men's athletics since the turn of the calendar in 2025, yeah, that feels about right. And a lot of people online were saying that they are who we thought they were.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Unfortunately. However, the Ticket Fairy also is exactly who we thought they were, because I have a piece of paper in my hand right now that says that we have 2 family 4-packs of tickets for the game tonight, 6:30, Founders Park. The weather should be a lot lovelier than it has been. Starting to warm up a little bit.
Nice.
Great day to enjoy a ballpark hot dog, one of my favorite things on the planet. So if your callers 2 and 3, you can get one of these family 4-packs of tickets to tonight's game against Charleston Southern, which a good Charleston Southern team. This is actually a really good midweek test, because Charleston Southern won 10 of their first 11 games to start the season. They're not bad.
Don't like that.
Yeah. I mean, they took care of business last night, Carolina
They did.
That's correct.
Yes.
So, we're hoping. But now just a quick survey. Buns have to be steamed for a hot dog, right?
Oh, yes. 100%.
I mean,
100%.
I have that debate in the house because I actually have a little pouch that I will actually put in the microwave and steam hot dog buns. And they're like, why do you do that? I'm like, because it's a necessity.
Yeah.
Like, it's the only way to eat hot dogs.
It enhances the hot dogs.
Yeah.
The little things. If you're going to do it right.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Okay. I just had to get that.
Yeah.
So that way I can go home and say, see,
You're not on
I'm
Steam
right.
Bun Island. No, you're
yeah.
not. There's more of a population here than you may think.
Exactly. I'm not all by myself. I'm not a castaway.
Exactly. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
If I have to be Wilson in the volleyball, if Preston have to be Wilson, and we're the only ones on it with you, we will be on there with you.
I appreciate that. Thanks for the support. I'm going to go get some winners.
Take your victory lap there too. But also in terms of they are who we thought they were, our Denny Green Awards for this week, Michael Jordan.
Oh.
Because owner of a racing team, what did Michael Jordan do a lot of when he played basketball?
Win.
National title winner at North Carolina, won 6 NBA championships, and he's got a pretty good head start on winning a NASCAR title because Tyler Reddick is 3 for 3.
Yeah.
I don't know much about NASCAR, nothing like Jen and Tyler, but I do know that you play to win the game. Herm Edwards taught me that. And Tyler Reddick has raced 3 races, and he has won all of them. Ovals, road courses. Michael Jordan, the owner of that team, maybe the owner of another championship. Michael Jordan wins, man. He is exactly who we thought he was.
all in the midst of suing NASCAR. I mean, it's a whole wild situation that's happening with that, and to see the light in his eyes for winning, like that, he wants nothing more on earth than to win.
At anything.
At anything.
Basketball, NASCAR, jacks, checkers. It doesn't matter what it is.
Well, the flip quarters, that's that's my favorite scene from The Last Dance.
He's playing the flip quarters with the security guard.
It's my favorite scene because it's like, this guy is a maniac. He doesn't care. The flip side of that is they finally realized.
See what you did there.
The Arizona Cardinals have finally called out, and they said, Kyler Murray, you are who we thought you were.
Very ironic that the Arizona Cardinals.
When we were trying to put provisions in your contract to say that you needed to play less Call of Duty, and we had to monitor how many video games we playing, I think they knew exactly who they were. They let it slide for a while, but it seems as if it's come to an end, and the relationship between Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals seems to be ending. And I will say Kyler Murray is who they thought he was.
Which is Kyler Murray's career is frustrating because you saw the flashes, right? And for somebody who is as undersized as he is, I mean, the closest thing I think we have to a toddler in the NFL in terms of body build is Kyler Murray. And you've seen him early in his career make some spectacular plays, make some great downfield throws, escape broken pockets, and make a lot of magic happen. Like, if you just watch him play and watch some of the, some of the highlights of his career, you look at him and say, why can't you do that consistently? But then the reports are that, he's not maybe as locked in and engaged in learning the offense. He's logging a lot of those hours on Call of Duty. Probably has some incredible streaks on there. I can't attest to how good he is. I'm sure he's very good if he's put in the work. That's what hard work will do, kids. It'll get you to accomplish a lot of cool stuff. However, there's other maybe non-football things that have kept him from becoming what it is he could be, which was the promise that anybody has when they're the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft.
Obviously talented, especially when you're saying doing it at that size. He's done it at every level. He's been highly successful. But the other thing that's followed him at every single level, kind of just don't like that guy, man.
A maturity factor.
Yeah, like the locker room just kind of like, they don't really like him at every single level. There's been reports from beat writers, from high school, from college, from the league. It's kind of like, we just don't like this dude in the league, in the locker room, and that's a tough spot to be in as a quarterback when you're supposed to be leading the team through. So, yeah, he is who they thought he was.
From a talent standpoint, you could look at him as being maybe the next Sam Darnold, as somebody who gets cast away from the first team that they play with as a very high draft pick, and then find some type of career reclamation project somewhere else where they're able to turn into the quarterback they were expected to be. However, I think with Sam Darnold, it was never a question as to whether or not he cared, right? It was never a question as to whether or not he would be dedicated to fulfilling that promise. With Kyler Murray, the fact that that question does exist would make anyone hesitant if we're trying to identify the next reclamation project to land on Sam Darnold.
For instance, we just heard Shane Beamer talk about Lenore Sellers and say that he's a football junkie. He's watching football. And I'm not even saying that that's what you have to be, but no coach could answer that in the affirmative about Kyler Murray. All they could say was, he's extremely talented. And that's probably not going to be enough.
It can only get you so far. Hard work beats talent. When talent didn't work hard. Someone put that on a T-shirt. And last thing, too, they are who we thought they were. I'm afraid the chicken curse is getting a Denny Green award. Because I knew when I heard yesterday that Josiah Thompson more than likely going to miss the 2026 season, the first thing I thought of was, oh, buddy, it may be real. Sage the building. Change the juju.
It's very... The arguments are coming fast and furious. It's very difficult to just big brain it and say, oh, you got to have perspective. This is happening to everybody. Have you ever considered that it's only happening to me right now?
Right. And it's not stopping.
And it just keeps happening.
It keeps happening. That's the worst part. It doesn't stop. It keeps happening. Oh, man. Coming up next, though, it's time to air some grievances because there are a couple of folks that I cannot wait to put on the line, one of whom failed the biggest dummy test on planet Earth. And I'll tell you who that is coming up next. Time to put some folks on the line, air some grievances. Hit it, Jen. Coaches, too. And I already didn't have much of it. And before we get to the man who failed the worst dummy test on planet Earth, Preston Thorne, I want to get to a coach we need to put on the line. Because in that clip, it's coaches yelling at players to put on the line. Or I should say maybe a former coach.
Hint. Yep.
Now, former head coach at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, Trent Dilfer, did what every fired coach does. That's hop on a podcast and wax poetically about your time at your former employer. Well, Trent Dilfer was on with Chad Withrow and Jonathan Hutton in Nashville, and he had this to say about his time and his former players.
And if I were to do it all over again, I would have just stuck with high school, had 1 or 2 year players, and lost them and been a 500 football team. Because when you go in the portal for leftovers, that's what you get. They're good kids. They're looking for an opportunity, but there's a reason why it didn't work at their last school if they're coming to UAB. There's usually a competitive piece to it. It's not a traits thing. We had some tradey kids. In fact, we'd go play Tulane, and John would say, hey, you got a good-looking team. I'm like, yeah, but wait till this thing gets hard and see how they respond. And that's where the personal fouls and the lack of discipline and missed assignments and drop balls and bad reads, because from a competitive temperament standpoint, there's a reason why they didn't make it at Maryland or Georgia Tech or wherever we're getting them from, because when it gets hard, a really good player rises. Our players shrunk, and that was the thing in 3 years, is just watching. Unfortunately, because I love these kids and that got really good relationships with them, but just watch them shrink and remembering when I was a player what that felt like and fighting through that and becoming a riser as a player instead of a shrinker as a player. But when you have a team of shrinkers, like, you got no chance.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks. Here's my main issue here. You talk about kids that are coming into the portal to play for you at UAB, which, A, you recruited, right? If you thought they were such shrinkers, you maybe should have seen some shrinkage on film. Or, how about, buddy, it's your job to get that out of them. Oh, players are committing personal fouls? They're missing assignments? That's what the money's for.
He just listed all the things that coaches are supposed to be working on.
That's your job, is to get them in the spot.
It's like, oh, no, they don't come prepaid, packaged and ready for me to coach?
No.
Whoa.
And I love how he's like, well, that's what got me, as a player. When things got tough, that's when I became a riser. Oh, yeah, like the year that you won the Super Bowl as a quarterback despite throwing only 12 touchdown passes and 11 interceptions in the season? Did you rise, or were you elevated by Ray Lewis?
There's also that clip where Trent Dilfer gets hit and proceeds to get into a fight on the sideline, get kicked out of the game as a quarterback. That happened also, so I'm not sure if he rose in that occasion.
Yeah, that sounded like shrinkage to me.
Yeah.
Not to say I'm an expert.
Can we do it?
Yeah.
Trent Dilfer, get on the line. He's a repeat offender, man. That guy is very unlikable. I could understand why players probably didn't enjoy playing for him. Kudos to him for being a Super Bowl winning quarterback. That being said, we don't limit this to coaches. We don't limit this to players. I have to get staff involved too. Gamecock basketball promotions, come here.
Oh, come here.
I let it go once when you let the NIT team come to town on the snow days and you let them go to an empty arena to celebrate them. I let it go. I let it go again when we had Legends Weekend and nobody knew about it. Not on social media, not anywhere. We had no clue this was happening. Third time, I can't let it ride anymore. Our legend, Devin Downey, was greeted with an empty gym as you put his jersey in the arena, which it should be. Electric. Guy rocked.
He was great.
Gamecock basketball promotions, you have failed this year to elevate the status of your program. Doesn't matter that the program is not doing well. You have to do your job and make people want to come see you. You have not done that on 3 separate occasions this year.
Lipstick on a pig.
You have not, on 3 separate occasions, you had an opportunity to honor your program, to bring some levity to this bad situation, and you did not do that. You failed tremendously. And maybe that's why people aren't necessarily bought into what's going on with basketball, because when you had a chance to honor the good times, you failed to do it. So Gamecock basketball promotions, get on the line, man. Don't have my boy Devin Downey in an empty gym. We're going to run that back.
Yeah, we got to do it again.
We got to do that again.
Yep.
Because that wasn't right.
Give him a proper one.
Give that man a proper honor, because that was not the right time to do that. And you should read the room. Be like, hey man, I don't think a lot of people are going to be at this game.
Yeah.
We might want to just move this thing to another time when we can properly honor some of our basketball heroes, because again, not a great time. So Gamecock basketball promotions, not cool.
Yeah, you got to get people excited again, or remind them of the good times, and that there's potential for this to come back, and we have a lot to celebrate in history. And yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There are a couple of redos I think that are going to have to be done, just to get the proper celebration of their careers. Lastly here, the man who failed the ultimate dummy test, Jurickson Profar. Atlanta Braves gave you a lot of money so you could be on the field. Last year, he missed half the season, an 81-game suspension because of a failed PED test. And, of course, he does the thing everybody does. Oh, well, I didn't think this was illegal. I did not take this. Okay, fine. Well, yesterday it came out that he failed another one, which means he is suspended for all 162 games of the regular season. All you got to do is just not take this stuff, dog. This isn't hard. This isn't hard. You're supposed to learn a lesson. And it's not like this happened 3 or 4 years after a failed test. This happened a year. It's the second straight year you failed a PED test. Jurickson Profar, that's the ultimate dummy test, man. And you know they're going to test you. And to still take it and to still get busted, now miss a whole year,
get on the line.
Absolutely brutal stuff. At this point, it's a test on your intelligence.
Now it's a dummy test for the Braves.
Yeah.
Now if you re-sign them, get on the line.
Yeah, then it's on you. Hour number 3. It's upon us. It's next.
It's gotten a little busier on the highways this morning. Stop and go traffic, I-20 westbound between Spears Creek Church Road and Alpine Road. But it looks like it's going to continue to get better. So things are clearing, but just allow for a little extra time. I-20 westbound at I-77, the 2 left lanes are blocked. Also an accident, Forest Drive near Percival. I-20 eastbound at Sunset Boulevard. I-126 eastbound at Greystone Boulevard. One more to let you know about, and that is Leesburg at Garner's Ferry. Beautiful forecast on the way. Going to have some clouds today, but a high of 76. Going to be 80 tomorrow, 83 on Friday, and we'll just keep going like that for the weekend. 46 currently.
The early game, third and long hour, starts right now. I'm Elijah Campbell. He is Preston Thorne. She is Jen Jensen. Our man Thomas is in the video production room here at Studio 803, where you can find us on YouTube. Just go to @TheGame TV Radio, or just go into the search bar and type in 107.5 The Game, and we will pop up. Hit subscribe, get all the notifications that you need for whenever we do go live, have extra stuff that we do for the YouTube page, and be able to watch us all day long on Twitter, as well as hear us on the terrestrial radio. We'll revisit the big news from yesterday before we even get into the results that happened on the actual playing surfaces in baseball and basketball last night. But the biggest news, however, came off the field, and off the football field specifically. Spring practice starts today for South Carolina. And as much as we would love to talk about position groups of interest and things to watch for and all the fun stuff that you can start discussing whenever spring practice finally kicks in, the big storyline is yet another injury that's going to cause a very key player to miss some time. Shane Beamer said yesterday Josiah Thompson expected to miss the 2026 season because of a procedure from an injury that happened previously that they have known about, but now it has gotten to the point where the procedure is necessary. And we'll hear from Shane himself, too. Jen, we'll go back to cut 13. This is going to be Shane talking about the details of Josiah Thompson's injury.
Yeah, not really. I don't want to stand up here and tell you something and sound like an idiot in regards to where it stems from and things like that. And then in regards to specifically what it is, I just say, lower body injury and keep it at that, and whatever he or family or anybody else want to elaborate on. It's nothing long term beyond the upcoming season, and disappointing for him, but in order for him to be at his best, it's what needed to happen. He just had some limitations in the weight room because of it that was preventing him from probably being as strong in the lower body as he needs to be, and in order to continue to gain weight and be the player that he wants to be. This will be a thing that will alleviate some of that, that will allow him to take another step as a player. And again, I know it's, oh my God, Pete got hurt playing basketball, and there's Josiah, who the heck's going to play left tackle. We'll be fine. We got a lot of really good players in that offensive line room, and Pete will be back healthy, and when Josiah gets back, he'll be the best version of himself that he's been in his career also.
Now, the hope is that that Josiah can eventually become the best version of himself, like Shane alluded to, that hopefully this procedure allows him to be able to do that. Hard for us to speculate because we don't know what the procedure is on. We just know a lower body injury. So it could be hip, leg, knee, ankle, foot. It could
Achilles.
It could be a lot of different things. And
none of them great.
But the main thing is, and we can talk about, how this will affect Josiah in the long term and the procedure that he has. But what we do know is that we should not expect to see him on the football field in 2026. And despite the year he had this past year, which now maybe seems explainable, is now even more of a bummer that you're not going to have him on the field at all
in 26.
Yeah, for me specifically, I was looking forward to seeing Josiah get a chance to work with another coach, be in a different offensive system. Maybe he could go back to some of the form that we saw his freshman year when we was like, oh, there's something there. Obviously, he was a 5-star guy coming out, so you know all of the potential is there. But I was chalking it up to he just hasn't been coached well. The coach is gone. The offensive system is out of here. I was really looking forward to him being able to participate in this new system, and that's not going to happen, at least for this year. The other part that concerns me is that, man, you just never know. You know, once you get into the realm of dealing with season-ending injuries where you know you're out for a year, I just can't assume that everything's going to be all right. We hope that it is. You pray that it is, and you know he's going to do all of the rehab that he needs to. We're not talking about that, but it's just the nature of injuries, especially whatever it could be, who knows? But I would say if it's the foot or if it's the knee or if it's a hip, none of those things are great. And they don't all have 100% recovery time. And if he does come back, does he come back to who he was? You never know. So it just casts a cloud of doubt over his career for me right now.
And that's what makes the lower leg thing to me so concerning, is because the risk of re-injury is high just because of how big he is. He is a left tackle, right? He is 6'7" with, you know, and they were trying to get him to 300 pounds, and it's a big body, right? And you look at countless examples throughout sports, specifically basketball, where like the foot injury for 7-footers is known as like the big man's curse. And we can go through the list. Bill Walton, Greg Oden, Sam Bowie, a lot of players who have maybe never you're able to see their careers take off or have them cut short because of those injuries. And because when you are that big, the wear and tear and the torque your body takes, or the lower extremities end up taking, is often greater than it is of somebody of more normal person size, right? Like I joke all the time, human beings aren't supposed to be this big. That is a real concern, something that Josiah is going to have to work through when it comes to the rehab process of making sure that there is no re-injury or anything like that. Like it's a tough position for him to be in, and that's why mostly I feel bad for him, because this is going to be a really big year for him to be able to build on any type of development that last year might have taught him, right? Even though he had a down year last year, dealt with an injury, could he have built upon that and really started to develop and crack into that potential I think everybody knew that he had when he was such a highly coveted player coming out of high school? Now there is the having to get back from injury and managing an injury with being somebody of his size playing that position, because not only are you that size and you have to be really mobile, you have to move backwards really quickly. It's an incredibly physical position where you're putting hands on somebody and someone's putting hands on you every single snap you're out on the football field.
If I may, I don't have them with me, and we did it yesterday, but if I was to put on some Garnet goggles and maybe just look across the road at the women's basketball team, they had significant injuries going into the year, two of which you would have said, man, those are devastating. You lost Ashlyn, you lost Chloe, two people who are extremely important to the development of that team. And as Coach Staley said, we don't speak of the dead, right? And it's very curt. It may not be the most cuddly thing you want to hear, but we have to move forward. And maybe the timing of these injuries at the beginning of spring allows everybody to readjust, reprioritize, and allows those reps to be gained by somebody else who maybe wasn't going to get all the reps because Jacarius and Josiah were there.
It's funny you mentioned, Don's comments. I don't know if you remember the scene and Remember the Titans where Gary Bertier gets in the car accident. He goes, "Coach, I'm hurt. I'm not dead." If his coach is Don Staley, she said, "You are to me, buddy."
We love you.
You are to us.
I'm going to dap you up. You are still part of this team, but this mission must move forward.
Right.
That's just the nature of athletics. Move the drill. You've heard that sentiment before. But if there was a silver lining or garnet glasses that you could put on this, is that it's happening before spring. All of the reps that Josiah was going to get, all of the reps that Jacarius was going to get, now go to somebody else so that their development can improve and they can be worked on if you needed something to hold on to.
Yeah, and I do appreciate the confidence that Shane has, says we'll be fine. And that's why you bring in all of these guys, all these players at different positions on the offensive line. You know, you bring in somebody like Seth Smith, who's played a lot of college football, has really good size himself, really experienced. Can he come in and be the opposite tackle of Jacarius when Jacarius comes back? Who steps up in those positions is going to end up being the story of spring practice. And I feel like we get into broken record territory when we talk about this football program and the offensive line being the most important thing year in, year out, because we have not seen a ton of proof of concept that you can have a consistently healthy one and one that is keeping your pocket protected. I would say if you had an AI machine that went through every segment that this sports talk radio station has had, you know, since its inception, that you would probably have like 65 to 70% of time talking about the football team relating to the offensive line, because that's been the thing that's held you back and maybe the most heavily scrutinized, and for a reason. And so it does feel like we're getting into like dead horse territory here, but really when you look at spring practice right now knowing what we know about Josiah and with the question mark with Jacarius's availability, this once again has become an even bigger part of the story than it already was going into spring practice.
Yeah, and again, I just don't. If either one of them come back when they're healthy, that'll be a nice bonus. But we can't move forward as if they will be with the team, because you just don't know how bodies react to injury. Even if you do all of the rehab, if you do everything right, if you're having a surgery, you never know how the body is going to react, and you never know if they're going to get back to that point. So, but guess what? That's why you hired a new O-line coach.
Yep.
That's why you got a new offensive system. Coach Clem, you signed that check, big boy. Let's go get it.
Yeah, this is your test, man.
Let's go earn it.
This is your test.
We're not going to have you be like Trent Dilfer and complain about the injuries and complain about the traits. No, dog. You earned you signed a big check. You're getting big boy money. I expect nothing less than you to coach them up. This is not an excuse. You don't get a reprieve nor a do-over. You signed the check. Maybe you thought it was going to be something that it's not. You have the dudes that are there. Let's go earn it.
Coldplay already taught us, and nobody said it was easy. Maybe nobody said it would be this hard, but those are the lessons that we can learn.
As the old folks say, if the mountain was smooth, you couldn't climb it.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
So let's go.
803-404-6100. That's the Firehouse Subs text line. Marshall texts in and says, I can't help now but wonder a couple of different things. Could this potentially have been addressed at some point last year when the season was already lost? So
good question.
And also, is this injury the only reason he came back to begin with? No one else wanting to risk dealing with this? And that's a really fair question.
I think those are two extremely fair questions, two things I wondered myself. Because, again, when we're talking about Josiah, who entered the portal, there's obviously an evaluation process. And what I would be wondering is if during the evaluation process, did he get information from other teams that led him to come back? I don't know that information, but I don't think you're wrong to wonder that.
And if you are wondering it, Shane did address the timeline of the knowledge of Josiah's injury. Jen, this will be cut 9. This is Shane talking yesterday about the timeline and the knowledge of when they knew Josiah Thompson was dealing with what he was dealing with.
I knew that whenever we meaning Josiah, his family, the doctors, if and when they decided to do this surgery, that it would be most likely a season-ending type surgery. So we had this conversation with them last year and whatnot. But in regards to Josiah's status on our football team, in regards to whether he came back or didn't come back, from our standpoint, the surgery had nothing to do with it. It was, I always want what's best for each young man in our program, and Josiah is an awesome young man. His mom and dad are special people, and this will be, the best thing for them to allow him to play football at South Carolina in 2027 and beyond 2027 as a hopefully professional football player too. It's the best thing for him to be able to just continue to, be at his best.
So something that they have known about, but clearly this is a decision that's pretty tough. We used Jen as an example earlier about sometimes that surgery is going to be needed at some point, but there is a further evaluation of when is the best time to actually be able to do it, and now is the time they decided to be able to have that procedure.
I have a little bit of an objection to that because I do feel like the best time to do it would have been even directly after the season.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like if we knew this was something, we could have done this, like you said, maybe during the season when we knew the season was going off the rails a little bit and Josiah wasn't playing necessarily very well.
Where it was clearly affecting him.
It was affecting his playing. We might have could have done it then, but then if it was after the season and we knew it.
The season ended pretty early.
Yeah, we probably, I mean, he could have been in December, and that's that's 5 months worth of recovery. Who knows? I do think the portal situation has a lot to do with when this was taking place, and so I do have a little bit of an objection to that.
Coming up next, though, there were news of things that happened on playing surfaces last night. The baseball team was in action. The basketball team had their last home game at CLA. We'll tell you what happened and give you our thoughts coming up next.
And taking a peek at your traffic conditions, still some accidents outstanding. Leesburg Road at Garner's Ferry. Also I-126 eastbound at Greystone Boulevard. I-20 westbound at I-77. I-20 eastbound at Sunset Boulevard. Highway 378 still in progress there. And Forest Drive at North Beltline Boulevard. Also a report of an accident. So do be careful out there this morning. 76 for the high, 80 tomorrow, 83 on Friday. It's going to be beautiful weather this weekend as we look to spring forward. 46 currently on 107.5 The Game.
Preston Thorne, I have good news and I have bad news. Which one do you prefer to receive first?
I'm a bad news first person.
Okay. I am too. I like being warmed up with some good news. The bad news is the South Carolina men's basketball team got beat 78-59 by Tennessee last night in a pretty barren gym. Not a lot of witnesses, which the game was televised, so there were more witnesses than there were in the gym. Worst news is last night Tennessee looked like the 2010 Clippers. And by that I mean not losing and gagging away a playoff series in the second round of the NBA playoffs, but like Jacoby Gillespie was Chris Paul. Felix Okpara.
It's not Blake's fault.
It's not Blake's fault. It's not Blake's fault. Doc Rivers. Endless quote. It's never Blake's fault. But in playing the role of Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan last night was JP Estrella and Felix Okpara. Because between those two gentlemen, they combined for 13 dunks in the game. Tennessee as a team had 15 dunks in the game. That was as close to Lob City as you are going to find at the college game. They had a lot of backdoor cuts resulting in alley-oop dunks. There were a lot of dunks, maybe not in transition, but like in the half court. Tennessee got to the rim a lot in that game, and if you look through maybe like the specific breakdown, obviously 15 for 15 on dunks. They're 23 of 29 in shots at the basket. They got 29 shots at the rim. South Carolina got 8. And I think if you want to just summarize the whole thing, if the game was TLDR or too long didn't read, let me summarize it for you. Tennessee got a lot of shots at the basket, a lot of which included putting armpits in the rim. South Carolina not so much, and that explains your 19-point discrepancy.
Yeah, and so a lot of times these things are about optics. We know this team is bad. We know they haven't had a great season. We know Tennessee is good. That being said, you would even be able to accept maybe if they beat them by 15 to 20 points just based on what the teams have been all this year.
Right.
But optics matter more in these types of situations where a coach is clearly on the hot seat, a lot of discussion around the team. You look around the gym, it's empty. And then not only are you getting beat, but the team seems like they're having Harlem Globetrotter type practice against you.
Right.
Throwing lobs, dunking it, reverse dunk, whatever, that's not a good look. And so it's not even that the result is what it was. Sometimes it's how it looks. And those are two things that were not going in Lamont's favor last night when you watched the optics of the way that game looked.
And in terms of the lobs that they got, a lot of the lobs came in ball screen situations, the pick and roll. Ball handler takes screen, roller rolls to basket, ball handler throws ball up, roller catches and throws it down. That was a pretty used play last night. Sometimes it would be a ball screen where it wasn't even the roller that dunked it. It was someone who was hanging out in what that's called the dunker spot, which is about the 10 to 15-foot range along the baseline where they just kind of sneak in behind a defense and then catch the lob that way. Lamont tried to get on the show earlier when he accidentally made an appearance, but now it is his time. We're subbing him in now. Jen, can we get cut number 16? This is Lamont last night talking about how his defense got dominated by Tennessee's pick and roll attack.
Yeah, no, they were effective with it. Inexplicably a couple of times we played it passive versus aggressive. Honestly, that was the key to everything was aggressive versus not very aggressive. I mean, we've talked about being aggressive to impact the ball handler. That way he doesn't get downhill to throw the lob. And then with another non-shooting big, I mean, I don't know how many times they got the lob out of the actual ball screen. I don't want to be misled by that. It was enough, but I don't want to be misled by that. So certainly we could have cleaned some things up there. There's no doubt. But, the biggest part, you look at aggression, they got a guy that goes over the back, and it's an out over the back call late in the game, and he pursued the ball as if he would never eat again if he did not get that ball. So that I don't know what there's not an answer for that other than to meet that aggression with more aggression. I think, in my life and my experiences, it's the only way. But that was, by and large, 18 second chance points. They're good at it. I get it. But all in all, even with all that, the things that we did, if somehow 18 was 6, right? You have a manageable number to work off of in terms of just the overall points that you gave up.
And I think that is a fair assessment, especially in the pick and roll. When he talks about aggression, too, they were trying to deploy some aggressive ball screen coverages, which is usually a lot of blitzing, meaning when the ball handler uses the ball screen, instead of switching, both players involved in the action converge on the point guard, and it's meant to force the point guard out further, closer to the half-court line, to where the pass that point guard makes can't be at the rim or to the roller, and it's forcing them to move the ball sideways. That way you kind of eliminate the usefulness of the ball screen. A couple of times they would try to blitz, but Jacoby Gillespie would split the double and then get into the lane, and then the lob would happen where you're clearly at a numbers disadvantage. If you're going to play an aggressive ball screen coverage defensively, you have to meet that coverage's level of aggression required in order to make that effective, and it wasn't effective last night.
And see, this is why the optics are bad, because you just explained everything in a very detailed, expert way. I know nothing what you're talking about. All I saw was boom and the lob, boom. That's all. I don't know. I don't need to know anything about basketball to know that team is dominating them. And so you have the worst of both worlds. You have people who are basketball experts are looking and trying to figure out, what are we doing? And then you have casuals like myself who are asking the same questions. That is a problem, because neither one of us can explain how bad that was. And so optically, man, you can lose by 20, but a team dunking all over you is not a great look.
I'd rather lose by 20 if they're just hitting a lot of threes and a lot of tough shots. Different when they're dunking on you.
Again, as I go back to, as I always relate things to football, there's a big difference between somebody having 300 yards passing or 300 yards rushing. It feels a little bit different.
the vibe is a lot different one way or the other. Now, you want the good news?
Oh, yeah, let's go.
All right. Baseball team, bounce back.
All right.
They got a win against USC Upstate last night, 12-3.
1 of 5. I need 5, and this is a good place to start.
Weren't feeling great after 5 innings when it was tied, but Patrick Evans happened last night.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. Baseball's a long game. I don't care when the score is tied.
Yeah,
I just need to know what's going on.
You get 9 attempts to be able to put runs on the board.
And I do think this is extremely important. They have five home games before conference play starts. I position that they need to win all 5. And I position that they need to take this and build going into the season if they want folks to if they want to take themselves seriously.
Yeah.
If they are who they think they are, they need to win these 5 games.
They only left 4 on base last night. I will take that any day of the week. You got 16 hits. You got more hits in this game than you did all weekend. I'll take that. And it's good to see Patrick Evans be able to, as the leadoff hitter last night, go 4 of 5, 3 RBI, 2 home runs.
Okay. And
I like that.
And I believe we got some good news on Will Craddock.
Yeah, he didn't play last night,
which was fine, but X-rays came back negative, and I think we're moving forward, right?
Yes, after he got hit in the hand with that pitch in the last game.
That's another piece of good news.
Clemson, which if he's not able to hit leadoff and be available, I would say Patrick Evans going 4 of 5 and giving you everything that you needed and hitting a couple out of the park makes you feel good about his development, and I think his average now on the year is, I believe, 317. So still hitting really well. You're going to need that out of him. They play again tonight against Charleston Southern. It'll be a little step up in competition if we want to believe the early results in non-conference play from the Big South. But Charleston Southern off to a really good start. So it's a test tonight. Again, it's 1 of 5 games this week that you really need to have all 5 of them to get back on track. and maybe feel a little bit better about yourself by the time you get into SEC play. But coming up next, part 2 of our series of Money or Dominance. Is the juice worth the squeeze for FBS teams? Part 2 today is the transition. What goes into the transition going to FBS, and why is it such a difficult jump? We'll discuss that next. Troubles can exist anywhere in our lives, but if something like tax issues, whether it be business or personal income tax issues, are bothering you, especially this month, well, now is really the best time to go ahead and give our pal John Ecton and his team at the Ecton Law Firm a call, where you can let the stresses of taxes be taken care of by the Ecton Law Firm. Set up that free consultation today. Again, one of the best things they do is the consultation is free. Talk through your issue with them and see if they're the right fit for you. 803-771-9800. John, his local team, they've been resolving income or business tax issues for a long time here in the state of South Carolina, and they understand these challenges that you're facing right now better than anybody else, and that's why they're perfectly qualified to offer you the peace of mind that you know you deserve. So take advantage of their proven local solutions that have helped thousands of families and businesses just like yours escape that IRS maze. Right now, it is a crucial time to be able to get your ducks in a row when it comes to your tax issues. And I'm telling you, John Ecton and his team at the Ecton Law Firm are here to help put that fire out. 803-771-9800, or you can always visit them at ectonlawfirm.com. That's ECTONlawfirm.com.
Forest Drive near Percival, there's still an accident in progress. Also still working on I-20 eastbound between Highway 378 and Bush River Road. I-20 westbound at I-77. I-126 eastbound at Greystone Boulevard, an accident there. Also Leesburg Road at Garner's Ferry. So a few slowdowns across the Midlands to encounter. 76, that's going to be our high today. 80 tomorrow, 83 on Friday, kind of low to mid 80s throughout the weekend and to get us into next week. Just a cooler start today. 46 right now on 107.5 The Game.
Two of the early game, third and long hour goes deep for this week's discussion of money or dominance and whether or not the juice is worth the squeeze for FCS teams looking to move into FBS. This has all kind of been kickstarted by the story of North Dakota State, a powerhouse at the FCS level, comical levels of dominance where they are either winning a national title or they are seriously competing for it year in, year out, to the point where even if they are not in the championship game, it feels bizarre. This year it felt bizarre to see Illinois State and Montana State play for an FCS national title because North Dakota State has been a mainstay and a staple of this thing for a long time, sending guys to the NFL, always having every advantage, and because they have built that program into a real dominant powerhouse, but the fan base may be getting a little bored of winning. So they are making that.
Say that one more time.
Bored of winning.
Okay.
Yeah. Crazy concept. Woof. I would like to have some of those problems.
Yes.
Being bored of winning sounds fantastic. But they're taking their talents to the FBS level, to the Mountain West specifically, and that is where they will be next season or here in the future. So when breaking this down, we had like that really good discussion last week about really the conundrum. And yesterday we talked about the money part, right? Why it may seem lucrative. Is it more lucrative for teams that have made that jump? There are examples of it working, like James Madison being top 65 in the country in terms of athletic department revenue, and schools like Georgia Southern who have now been in the FBS for a while and still not inside the top 100, whereas there are other FCS schools that, according to the NCAA's website, are in that top 100. But today I want to look at the transition and what are the hurdles of making that transition, because we have seen so many mixed results in terms of what it looks like when you first get into the FBS level. Now, some schools like James Madison overcome that and they win immediately. Some schools like Sam Houston State do not, right? And they're coming off of a one-win season. That was a program that, when they were in the FCS, competing for national titles. The biggest thing, there's a couple of things that I have kind of jotted down as maybe like your initial big hurdles. Or the main thing is the improvement of competition, right? Yeah, there's a lot of great talent at the FCS level, but a lot of times, especially in today's college football, those best players at the FCS transfer up. Now, you have extreme examples of a Division II player like Trinidad Chambliss transferring up to Ole Miss to the SEC level and experiencing success. But for the most part, you see a lot of FCS really good players transfer to Mountain West schools, Sun Belt schools. That's usually where they're getting from, because they're getting poached by, like, their best players are getting poached by Power 4 conference schools, right? There's kind of like a food chain that goes on in college football, and the food chain for these schools at the G5 level are getting a lot of the best players from the FCS to go to their school and play for a year or two or however long their eligibility may last. That's one part, right? I think another thing, though, is the competition of recruitment, right? Like, so let's just use the North Dakota State for an example. Let's just say they lose out on a recruit who decides to go play at Utah State or UNLV. Doesn't hurt them at the FCS level because they don't have to play against those guys. Like, you could be in like the top three for a player who is choosing between North Dakota State, Boise State, and Colorado State. And if that player doesn't pick North Dakota State and they pick Colorado State or Boise State, no harm, no foul, because you don't have to face that guy. And because North Dakota State has been recruiting at such a high level, and they've proven that they can develop players and send them to the NFL, it's a more attractive landing spot for somebody straight out of high school that maybe isn't being heavily recruited by FBS programs. Well, now you lose out to those schools. You have to play said player one Saturday a year. And that makes things a lot different. And that makes these type of recruiting battles significantly more high pressure than they used to be when you were the king of the castle in the FCS.
Yeah, and I think these administrations may be overestimating people's appetite for hard.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Resistance.
Like, yeah, I don't know if, for instance, I don't play video games very much anymore. Shout out to Kyler Murray. But when I do, and if I do, I'm going to play it on rookie level, dog. Because I come here for fun.
I want to put up 70 points in this football game.
I'm not coming here for a challenge. I have a challenge in my life.
Everyday life is the challenge.
That's the challenge. I come here for, and so I don't know if fans' appetite, especially they're used to winning, and I think they want to compete on that level, but winning is a lot of fun. And I think the first transition that they're going to have to make is the expectations for fans is, hey, we had the person from Georgia Southern calling in the person from App State last week. Like, I don't know if I enjoy it as much. I understand it. It's cool, but I don't know if I enjoy it as much as just the ability to walk into a stadium on Saturday and feel like I'm going to win. That's fun. Yeah. And a lot of times this is what we come to sports for, is fun. And I don't know if admin necessarily understands that.
And like the pressure in some of these games too. Like let's use Appalachian State as an example. Not too far from here. When they played Michigan on that first week of the year in 2007 to kick off the Big Ten Network, funny enough, and they pulled off that upset, there was really no pressure for them to have to win that game because guess what? They could lose that game and get beat like most teams do at the FCS level when they start the season on the road against a power conference opponent. And you can say it makes you better and it prepares us to be able to win our own national championship down the road. Your non-conference games now can hurt you when it comes to trying to get a playoff spot because now more likely you're only one spot. Normally, this year was an exception, I think, rather than the expectation or the rule where a G5 school gets into the college football playoff. You're battling for one spot just to get into that type of postseason. You're also now just playing for bowl games. When you have a fan base that has an expectation of playing in a playoff every year, or at least a custom of playing in the playoff every year to compete for a large-scale trophy, it's a lot different. The pressure to win a lot of those non-conference games that you're playing is now elevated and heightened. And when you start losing those, losing the games under the big pressure then starts to add its toll to just the psyche of your program.
Yeah. And so the transition is we have to transition our fan base's expectations to what is the new reality that we're going to incur in the hopes that things work out well. They could work. Yeah. And if they work out, it's a huge payoff. That's a huge payoff. If you make the playoffs, you get that payoff for your athletic department. You can fund, you talk about your school all the time about how making the NCAA tournament put them in the black.
Finally. It was decades.
And so I understand the risk. I just think from a fan's perspective, don't underestimate the feeling of winning as we're experiencing here as Gamecocks, because it's not necessarily as fun when you don't even feel as if you have a chance to compete.
Because these are football field decisions, and other sports,
everything's run by football.
Everything is run by football, and if we look at the first 2 years of a 12-team college football playoff, the only G5 schools to make the playoff are Boise State, Tulane, James Madison. Only one of those schools was a recent FBS addition. Boise State's been in it for a long time. They have a well-established record of winning at the FBS level. Tulane has been FBS for a long time, a former member of the Southeastern Conference way back in the day. It's really hard to come in and get that type of dividend early. And I think we're going to look, in the future as looking at a school like James Madison, say that is the expectation rather than, or not the expectation, that is the exception rather than the norm. And that's one thing that when you make this transition, there are a lot of things to think of. That is one of the main ones. But coming up next, we'll wrap up our show today by giving you our winners from the show today. And as always, brought to you by the Golden Spur. We'll do that coming up next. Oh, we got you, Coach. Every day we give you our winners, brought to you by the Golden Spur. And my first winner for today's show, Coldplay.
Oh, okay.
In terms of popular music from the early 2000s that I think has aged better over time.
Ooh.
Simply, you can give them a winner for that. But there are some Coldplay songs and lyrics very apropos to the state of Gamecock athletics. Like, nobody said it was easy. Nobody ever said it would be this hard.
There's a contingent of folks who only know Coldplay from their recent social media deal that happened with them at the concert, correct?
With certain concert goers. Yes.
That's how they only know who Coldplay is. And that's a shame. You need to go look up Coldplay.
Great discography.
Solid,
A great discography. And, that one lyric from the song The Scientist, very appropriate. My pal Justin Hall, who have done the high school football scoreboard show, texted me saying, Gamecock fans hoping Shane Beamer can take them back to the start of at least when we were feeling really good about ourselves and 2024, the season of 2022, or the excitement of overachieving in year number 1. That's also appropriate. And for when it comes to baseball and men's basketball, if you want to use another Coldplay song, you got to find somebody who can try to fix you because it's needed. Because I was in that gym last night at CLA. It was empty. Not completely empty, but there was not a strong showing because I think that reflects how the fan base feels about the season that you've had and compared to last season too. And there's some fixing that needs to be done.
I dig it. I'm gonna stay here. I did have another winner, but I do want to mention this because you mentioned Coldplay, and I always heard Coldplay sort of referenced as, and this may be wrong, so I can be corrected, but maybe unseasoned Radiohead.
Oh, look at you. Okay, yeah, because it is elite sad boy music, I will say. Radiohead is, if we want to put a sports comparison to their dominance of the genre, it's kind of like John Wooden's UCLA teams. Radiohead.
Over back to back to back?
Back to back to back to back. Just banger after banger. Great sad boy tunes.
Also the ability to do it in a different way, like the every album changes and they become weirder and weirder. At the end, it's like, who are these people? I need Coldplay because they're a little bit more normal.
Normal.
More palatable.
Version. Yes.
More palatable than
maybe
that.
not the same level of dominance of the genre.
Yes. But
still.
That being said, I talked about it earlier. Got to give my winner to Devin Downey. His jersey is memorialized in the atrium of the CLA. I think that's a really cool way to do it. But as I was looking at this, he has all the ingredients of being the dude. 5'9", hometown dude, puts up buckets, plays hard. And if he needs to be re-recognized because the gym was empty, so we need to run that back, make sure we re-recognize Devin Downey for the Gamecock legend that he is. Shout out to Devin. Shout out to Chester. A definite Gamecock legend.
My favorite Gamecock basketball player of all time.
Easy to see why.
Again, as somebody who had no emotional connection to the school when I was growing up, but I watched a ton of SEC basketball on a nightly basis and weeknights and on Saturdays growing up. That was the first player for South Carolina where I was ever like, oh, this guy rocks. And was just one of my favorite players of that era. One
of the archetypes we talk about all the time, but he's definitely qualifies for all fire marshal team. Because there are so many stories about the Chester gym being put to capacity when he would show up and play, and people would show up from far and wide to watch him play.
People getting shooed away at the door. It is a fire marshal game.
Yep.
Pal Will King tweeted at me over the weekend because there's last week, playoff game between North Augusta and Gray Collegiate. And he said, fire marshal game.
Nice.
I love a fire marshal game,
Nice.
Man. Always the best. Another winner for today's show. Exorcist.
Okay.
Because if you believe in the chicken curse, and with the news of Jacarius Pete getting hurt playing basketball in a freak accident, and then Josiah Thompson, the news that he is potentially missing the 2026 season because of a procedure, if you are a believer in the chicken curse, I cannot argue against you. I have no ammo to argue against you, and I have no ammo to say that there is no reason to bring an exorcist over to the football stadium and maybe put some holy water on the stadium or the facility or just everywhere on campus. Also, did watch a video last week about why movies don't feel the same anymore. And an example they used, they started the entire video off by playing clips from The Exorcist and interviews of people who saw The Exorcist in theaters and admitted to either throwing up in the theater or not being able to finish the movie. We don't have experiences like that in movie theaters anymore. So for those reasons, Exorcists.
I like it.
Winners.
I like it. Let's see. Where do we want to go with winners?
I'm gonna go with spring. For spring being new, for spring allowing us to move forward, the beginning of a new season. I've been stated on this program that I was going to be honest in my appraisal of last year's offense up until today. And so today is my last chance to state that offense last year stunk. They were not winners. They were, in fact, losers.
Nowhere, belonging in this segment.
But that being said, we have winners on the way. Spring practice is here. It's a great time for everybody to start anew.
Hope springing eternal, if you will.
And we're going to spring forward this weekend, so the team can also spring forward.
Jen, that might not be a winner, especially for a morning show.
Oh, I know. Hate everything about it.
Oh, brother, it's already going to be a busy weekend for you, boy. Oh, man. Yeah, I have to lose an hour, so I got to pick that up somewhere. Don't know where it's going to happen, but I got to find it somewhere. Always a fan of falling back, not a fan of springing forward.
It'll pay off eventually, just not right now.
Just not right now, no. Absolutely not. However, it will help me a little bit, though, because in Phoenix, they don't observe daylight savings.
That's correct.
A little bit easier in the time zone if I have to go out there and do shows from there for the Final Four coming up here in a few weeks. Those are our winners for today's show, brought to you by the Golden Spur, Tyler Head and Jack Veltri. They're winners with the extra point, and they are next.